Hey everyone, and welcome to Plant Powered Business Strategies to Grow Your Positive Impact. My name is Brieanna, and I'm here as always with my co host Johanna
Hello.
and a special guest, Kristen Decker.
Hi,
T-
nice to meet you.
Kristen is the founder and CEO of Desert Bloom, and Desert Bloom is challenging one of the most traditional categories in fashion footwear, the cowboy boot. One of my personal favorites, too. Instead of using conventional leather, Desert Boot creates Western boots from innovative plant based materials derived from corn and wheat, while maintaining the durability, style, and performance people expect from a premium cowboy boot. What makes Desert Bloom especially unique is that the goal isn't just to create a sustainable alternative that feels like a compromise. The mission is to create a cowboy boot that people genuinely love to wear, one that feels more like a sneaker while delivering the look and durability of a traditional Western boot. And getting an idea like that from concept to an actual product is no small feat. Kristen has had to navigate product development, manufacturing, innovative materials, and all the realities that come with building a consumer brand from the ground up, all while taking on a category that's been doing things essentially the same for generations. So today we're getting into what it really takes to build something innovative, challenging an established industry, and growing a purpose driven startup without asking consumers to compromise. Kristen, welcome to Plant Powered Business.
Thank you. That was like an amazing introduction, and you literally hit everything, every point.
Oh,
So, yeah,
good.
thank you so much.
Well, I'm a fan, and I currently have a pair of your boots in a cart saved, just waiting for a paycheck. So I am singing your praises, genuinely. Very excited to have you on the show and be able to talk to you today. We like to kick things off with our guests to hear about your vegan journey. What's that journey been like for you?
Yeah, it has been I tell you, it's been a really incredible journey. I've always been a cowgirl. Like, ever since I was a little girl, I grew up on a farm, and so at a very young age, I was always wearing, cowboy boots and hats and just in the Western culture in general. So, it's always just been a part of me and my history. And even to this day, like, I always wear cowgirl boots, I always wear a hat. It's just part of my, like, everyday wardrobe. And my husband and I actually split our time between the United States and also Mexico. So we live in Mexico for a good portion of the year. And we had opened up a property management business down in Mexico years ago to basically service like a lot of the snowbirds that would come down for the winter. Like, they'd have homes up north during the rainy and snowy seasons, and then they'd come down to Mexico, for the sunny and nice weather during the winter months. And so we built this business down there servicing them. And over the years, I think it was about like 12 years ago, I had just by chance come across this material. And it comes out of Mexico City. And I just thought to myself, when I started reading about it and learning about it, I thought, wow, this is very unique. It's not your traditional leather that comes from animal skin, and it's not, like a cheap plastic synthetic either. So it was like completely different. Being in the property management business, we would get a lot of clients that would like donate, just give us their old furniture, like their old couches or their old chairs and things like that. So I started years ago, I would purchase like these big rolls of this material, and I started recovering old couches and chairs because I just thought, I wanted to see what happened and what it looked like and how it worked. And it was turning out amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, this like acts like leather. It feels like leather, but it comes from plants. Like, this is so cool. And then it was about 5 years ago that I just woke up one morning and I like literally looked at myself in the mirror and I said, I need to make some cowgirl boots. And so it was just like that. It was like, I don't know, it was something that just it felt like I needed to do this. Like, I don't know, maybe this was part of, my purpose in life to just go this route and to do this, but that is genuinely how this whole process started. And
Very
from
cool.
there, it was, I didn't really have any experience building a cowgirl boot brand. I had property management business experience, I had real estate, experience, And so what I did is I started doing some research in the industry and I actually hired a consultant for about the first year. She's actually been in the Western boot industry for several years. She does development, she teaches, she's worked for big brands like Harriet and a lot of other brands as well. But working with her in the beginning was amazing because I didn't know anything and I wasn't going to pretend like I did, right? So having her was an absolute blessing and just learning the process, learning the systems, learning who to contact, where to go, what to do because we had the material and I knew generally what I wanted to do. And then, it was a matter of like sourcing like a designer, somebody who could help me draw and design the boots, put together mood boards and come up with the designs, to then sourcing a development team in Mexico that could help me, with the development of the last, which is where we got the design and the shape and the feel of the actual boot itself. So that's what gives it the feel of like a sneaker and a tennis shoe. And then also the development team in Mexico helped me source the manufacturing facility. But that was very, very difficult because for decades, everybody has been using leather or a cheap plastic synthetic. And so this material that I had was like completely innovative, completely new. And, just people in general just don't really like change. And when I brought them this material and I said, okay, I would like to make our cowgirl boots out of this. And they looked at me like I was just crazy. They were like, what do you mean? They were like, what is that? And
Right.
and even my development team was like, can't you just make cowgirl boots like everybody else, like out of like real leather?" And I'm like, "No, I don't wanna be like everybody else. Like my whole mission here is to create a new category. This is possible. I know it is. I know we can do this." And that truly is, this is like bigger than boots for the whole fashion industry, for the whole footwear industry, which is like literally one of our number one polluters of our planet. Finding this material and being able to create a new category that's better for our planet, doesn't use like the really harsh chemicals that they use for like the tanning processes and things like that. That kind of gives you like a broad picture of
Yeah.
my journey.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. I I love this story. It really, yeah, sounds like almost like this, download from somewhere that, hey, this is what you're supposed to do. I love these stories where you really feel like that there's a mission or a purpose. And you kind of answered my next question, which would have been like, why, since like, leather and cowboy boots or cowgirl boots are almost synonymous. So like, why challenge this or why create something new in this category? Did you think about any other products, for example, or was it clear that it's going to be the cowgirl boots?
Yeah, in the bio leather industry, there is more different materials, right? And actually, I originally started out with the cactus leather. So, and I ran multiple prototypes with the cactus leather, and for whatever reason, maybe they've evolved since I started that process, but I haven't really revisited it. But for me, when I was doing the prototypes for that, it was something about the texture. It was something about the way the product was coming back. I was not happy with the end result. And so I decided I basically pivoted. And that's when I found this other company called BioRecos that uses the corn and wheat fibers. What I found too is that it's also more durable. And for shoes in general, you have to have a more durable product specifically for the shoe and even the Western just boot in general, because around the toe, you have to create an extreme amount of pressure to be able to wrap the material around the actual tip of the boot. So it has to be able to sustain that and then as well all the wear and tear and this and that. But even my development team looked at me and they said, wow, they said, in all my years of dealing with like the leather and then the synthetic cheap materials, they said, this actually looks and feels like real leather, but it's not. So even they were impressed. And I have to tell you this, just throw this in real quick because this is
Yeah,
an
yeah,
amazing.
go for it.
When we were doing the prototype for the corn and wheat in the factory, I'll never forget it because it was that moment where they were actually wrapping the material around the toe, which is the most difficult part. And everybody in the factory, there probably, I don't know, was maybe 100 people at the time. Everybody stopped what they were doing and all gathered around to watch because everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, how is he gonna do this? What's gonna happen?" Like, everybody was intrigued. So, it was really the coolest moment to just watch everybody stop what they're doing and, like, watch this happen.
Yeah.
So, it's
Wow.
very cool. Yeah, but yeah, there are, there's apple leather, there's
Yeah.
apple leather. There's actually a new material that I am starting to explore. It's Polybion is the name of the company, and they use bacteria
Mm.
to grow the material.
Wow.
And I've actually just been talking to them and we're talking about wanting to make a boot to see what happens and make a prototype and stuff. So I am looking at other materials and as this industry and this evolves, my mission is to just get better and better.
Very cool.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
You can hear the passion too for the boot.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Can you? I know.
Oh, yeah.
I just love it. I don't know what it is, but I do. I love to create. I love to create. So,
I can
and I
tell.
feel like I genuinely in my heart, I feel like what we're doing is something really amazing. Like I was saying, like I feel like it really truly is. This is bigger than boots.
Mm.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. I think we both see this expanding in the future for you into
Yeah.
multitude of products that once you get your hands around it and you understand all the different varieties of alternatives that you just went through, and who knows what they'll come up next,
Yeah,
right?
I know, right?
Um,
Yeah. The
and
technology is amazing,
Yeah.
it
honestly.
really is. It really
Yeah.
is. And it's interesting too, specifically in your case where you're not only disrupting what is happening with the actual product, so leather, animal leather versus plant leather, but this is such a cultural item too, and there's so much history with it being leather. I have to imagine that innovation in such a culturally specific and expected space, you encounter skepticism, right? And you've touched on
Oh,
this a little bit. So I'm curious if you could dive in a little bit more on that when you're innovating something like this that is so steeped in a tradition. What is
yeah.
that like to come at it from a different angle?
Yeah, you are absolutely correct with the skepticism. That honestly has been my biggest challenge.
Okay.
Like truly, 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 that has been my biggest challenge because it's like educating people behind the actual product. Because for decades, people are so used to, they know leather, they understand leather, it's been around forever. They know what they get when they get a plastic synthetic material but teaching people the education behind this literally has been so, so difficult. Initially, when I had started this, I actually came out and I was, like, really pushing the sustainability of the boots, and I, was saying, they're vegan, and I was really, really pushing that hard in the beginning. Come to find out that when I say vegan boots, people automatically associate it to a cheap plastic synthetic. And they're like,
Yep.
"Well, why are your boots so expensive?" Like, they immediately in their mind, they think, "Oh, these should be, like, really they shouldn't be this expensive." And so I had to pivot with how I was marketing and wording it, and so I went from saying vegan boots to saying bio leather. And so when you Google vegan boots, you get all these negative things, like you get cheap plastic, synthetic material. But when you Google bio leather, you get a completely positive, innovative, more expensive premium material. But yeah, people, like I said, kind of before, just with change, people are like, they don't really like change. The education process behind it has really been hard. I feel like I'm constantly having to educate about the durability, the strength. It's not leather, but it's just as good. Personally, I think it's better. I don't wanna compete because the leather industry in general is like a multi-billion dollar company, and I feel like a goldfish in a shark pond with these guys.
Yeah.
So, and the majority of them are owned by men too, so there's
Mm.
very few female founders as well doing this in this industry, and you literally hit my most difficult challenge by far.
Yeah.
I believe it. I have to share that when I was preparing for this interview, I was thinking about what you must be up against because I
Yeah.
thought about before I was vegan, going to Nashville and how easy it is to get like the bulk boots and they're all leather. Like it's just steeped in the culture for all these Western items to be leather. It's everywhere, right? And it's
Yep.
easily accessible and there's different price points. And so yeah, goldfish in a shark pond has to be exactly the right way to say it, because it's not only the product placement, it's what you were saying about the story and the
Mhm.
marketing and how you had to educate people. You're creating a whole new niche within this, and it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a monster. This is by far probably the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm very passionate and I love what I'm doing, but it has been very, very difficult.
Yeah, thank you for being real about that. And we can totally talk a little bit more about that later. We like to keep it real and also talk about the challenges of entrepreneurship. But I just, yeah, wanted to say like thank you for doing what you're doing and still like being here, even though it's difficult. And that's how it is. Like you are clearly a trailblazer, and the role of that kind of a person is not easy. It's really interesting what you said just now about the actual like wording and the copy that you use and how you talk about your product. Because I had a look at your website and social media, and I paid attention to the fact that yeah, you don't lead with like creating vegan shoes. Like it's kind of it comes after you like get a bit deeper into the website or the story. Like it seems like you
Mhm.
really lead with this like beautiful, amazing, comfortable product, like very visually beautiful. And yeah, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about more about that. You said that you had to pivot with how you approach it, but did you do like a lot of kind of like marketing research around that, or it was, just experience from creating your brand, or feedback from your customers, or how you got to
Yeah.
where you are
Uh,
now?
yeah, a lot of it was trial and error,
Mm.
because we were, the way we were marketing it, we were getting a lot of people that were interested, like they're coming to the website, but then they're not converting. And then when we're going to shows and, people are like, we're talking about the plant-based alternative, and you could just tell immediately that people were like they were skeptical, right? They were like, "Well, this is new. Like, what is this? And, how is it going to last? Are these going to be a pair of boots that I'll be able to hand down and things like that?" Just with a lot of trial and error, it was, okay, what do we need to do? It was like I still to this day actually feel like Thomas Edison. So
Yeah.
he did this interview one time and he was like, "I've successfully learned 174 ways of how not, of what doesn't," right? So,
Yeah.
and until he found the 175th way. So I still feel like I'm going through that
Yeah.
phase, where I'm like, okay, that didn't work. Let's try this. Okay. So, but I feel now that we've got more of our story down as far as how we're communicating the product. And you're absolutely correct. Like we decided to kind of take a more Elon Musk approach on how he advertises like the Tesla, right? So it's based on, like performance, and then he, goes with sustainability, as a bonus. So we kind of took that similar approach
Yeah.
where we're like comfort, style, beauty, and then, oh yeah, by the way, as a
Yeah.
bonus, they're sustainable, right? We're using a plant-based material. Yeah, lots of research, lots of trial and error until you find something that hits. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Marketing's all testing.
Yeah, you could have the most amazing product in the world, but if
Yeah.
nobody knows about it, then
Yep.
what do you have?
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely. Such a good point. And I'm curious, I like how you laid it out that you're leading with the quality, what the product can do. Is it a hand-me-down abled boot? Right? Like,
Mhm.
what is your customer actually concerned about, and can you meet those needs? And then just fitting in the education for sustainability and this is a different leather, and you're meeting them where they are, essentially, and
Yeah.
helping them along. I'm curious in that perspective and in that messaging, does the animal ethics piece of this come into play at all? Is your customer base open to hearing about an alternative to animal skin or not so much?
They are, and most of them, I'll be honest, most of them are really they don't realize that, like, the tanning process and the chemicals that go into that tanning process, because you 'cause you're dealing with, like, skin, dead skin, right?
Yeah,
And so if you don't go through this particular process, it'll, like, decompose in
right.
their closet. So a lot of people don't really understand, that those chemicals end up in our water systems and our soils, and, like, even the workers in the factories, are getting sick. I met this lady, she, just by chance, she was probably in her mid-80s, and do you ever see the movie Fantastic Four?
Yeah.
And one of the characters in there is The Rock, and he's got that kind of rock-looking skin. So,
Mhm.
on her forearm, she had a huge patch on her forearm that literally looked like his skin. And
Wow.
she I was telling her my story about the boots and things like that, and she pointed out her arm and she said, "Do you know how I got this?" And I said, "No." I said, "Tell me." She said for about 10 years, she owned a leather tanning factory. And she used to deal with, like, really high-end leathers that came out of Italy and, like, all over the world, and, she said that from the chemicals, she has got that deformity on her
Oh,
arm that she'll never be able to get rid of, and she was telling me stories about how, some of the workers got cancer and would get sick. So when I talk to people about that piece of it, it's like they're surprised, right?
Hmm.
A lot of people don't know.
yeah,
They don't even know that the impact that, like, the fast fashion and the footwear and the fashion industry really has on this planet. Either they don't care or they don't understand it. That's all part of the education process with it.
yeah.
When I'm doing the education process, like, I had one of my prototypes and I actually wore them. I wore my prototypes almost every single day for like almost 2 years. And I wore them in the snow, I wore them in the mud, I wore them in the rain. I wore them everywhere because I wanted to genuinely see how are these things going to hold up? What's going to happen? And I still have them today. I've got some scuffs on the toes, but pretty much they look brand new other than just some, like, scuffs on the toe. And sometimes, a lot of times, I'll actually, when I'm out doing my education, I'll wear them and I'll tell people that story. I'll be like, "Listen, you're concerned about the material and how they're gonna hold up. I've been wearing these, like, every day for 2 years, and this is what they look like." So, and
Wow.
I've had them everywhere. Here you go. Here's your proof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. A side question. So the first pair was created around 2 years ago, is it? Or like more or less, or when did you actually start?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
launched the boots probably, yeah, about a year, little over a year and a half ago. I
Okay.
launched the
Yeah.
boots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so we get it out there. Let's talk a little bit about understanding your like ideal customer or audience. It's something that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, and you touched on that a little bit. So could you tell us a little bit more about that journey or understanding for you, like how you go about understanding who this boot is really for, or the different audiences, or any tips you'd like to share with our listeners?
A lot of the girls that we get, they genuinely like they're around like a lot of them are around the wellness space. They care about their bodies, they care about what they wear, they care about the foods that they're eating. They're eating more natural foods, without all the processed sugars and things like that. The younger demographic also too really, really loves what we're doing because I feel like they're more in touch with like wanting to kick the fast fashion off the high horse type thing. They're more environmentally conscious, I think, than a lot of some of the older generation. Honestly, I feel like we get a good mixture of people. I get a lot of moms that live on farms, like sustainable farms. I get a lot of girls with animal sanctuaries,
Mm.
animal rescue places. Like we just did a collaboration with the vegan cowgirl. She owns like a pig farm and she rescues pigs. So we just did a collaboration with her to help raise money for her sanctuary. I genuinely feel like our product could be for anybody who's open to it. because we do get a wide range of girls, so it's hard for me to pinpoint and say, "This is our Desert Bloom girl," because I feel like we get so many different types of people that are just intrigued and with what we're doing.
Yep, totally. And you hit on it though. It's that person that's open to it. That receptiveness to your message or to being educated about an alternative. And when you were speaking about the different generations, you were touching on that. Like the younger generation is more in tune with what's happening around them than perhaps some of the older people in your demographic. So that ideal customer, it all comes down to someone who's open to hearing your message.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm curious, just as an aside, you've mentioned going through different versions of the boot. How many versions before you were like, that's the Desert Bloom boot?
Right? Oh my gosh. I think we probably went through maybe 30 of them. You
Wow.
know, it wasn't overly huge amount, but a lot of that too was also experimenting with the cactus leather in the
Right.
beginning, right? Because we were like trying different things and I was like, no, this isn't working. And then we pivoted and switched with the wheat and corn. Then that's when things really started to take off. And a lot of it had to do with the texture of the product, you know, because I was experimenting with like kind of the smooth material. And then once we started adding in the texture of it, that's when it really started going, oh, wow, this is it. You know, this is definitely what we need to do.
What I love about what you're doing is that there's this like I love questioning things like the ways like the way that things have always been done and you're a trailblazer in that. So I wonder like has your experience of building this like business and exploring all these materials and everything has it made you question like other ways that like how things are done like different products or
I mean, that goes a lot just with the fashion and footwear industry in general. You know, it's like there's so much waste
yeah.
and they're just like, you know, mass producing. It all comes down to their margins, right? And, you know, they're investors and they're these big giant corporations that all they care about is money, right? And so they don't care about the impact they're doing on the planet. They don't care. Some of them are hiring child labor and, you know, in these foreign countries. And, you know, it's just not ethical, you know, what they're doing because for them, it's just all they care about is their bottom line. So, yeah, we're trying to be, you know, more methodical and slower pace, you know, with how we produce our boots and not making too many and selling out with once they're gone, you know, with maybe the idea of coming back with a style that maybe everybody's like, "Oh, please, will you make that again?" You know, like type thing, you know, somebody really loves a style, then we bring it back. But yeah, there's just too many companies out there right now that are just doing things that I don't necessarily agree with.
Yeah, and I have to like comment on that. Like one of the most like irritating, frustrating things about going against like traditional animal agriculture is exactly this that people don't know. Like we're so not connected to how animals are raised and how the materials or food are made from them, and people think that it's natural because it's somehow always been done like that. But yeah, the more you understand, the worse it often is. So yeah.
Yeah,
Where you find out
even
that it's just awful.
yeah, even with the food industry, like, I'm watching this happen live even with the food industry, you know, you're seeing more people that are challenging, for example, like, making a chocolate bar, you know, instead of having the synthetic sugars, they're using dates as their
Mm.
sweetener or, like, real maple syrup or things like that. They're using more natural ingredients than these highly processed chemicals and things that, you know, we're ingesting that are essentially making us sick.
Yeah, exactly. Like the tanning chemicals, right? It all
Yeah.
yeah, it's just about education and awareness at the core of this. Switching gears a little bit, we're gonna get into that little bit of realness behind being a founder and an entrepreneur that we promised. And
Yeah.
I'm curious, as a founder and a CEO, you're balancing so much. So you have product development that we've talked about, marketing that we've talked about, operations, finances, everything else, right? So what have you learned in this journey of what a founder should and shouldn't spend their time on? Because you've talked a lot about having a team, having a developer team, having this team, that team. So where do you focus your time? What has this journey taught you?
Yeah, I mean, wow, I've learned a lot. And if I can give any one good piece of advice to
Mhm.
entrepreneurs
I'm
out
like all
there
ears.
is to one is to surround yourself around people who believe in you more than you do, because there's going to be lots of moments of doubt where, you're going to say, why am I doing this? Because it's such a roller coaster of emotions and things that you go through as an entrepreneur. You go through many ups and downs, and it's those down moments that you go through is when you want those people in your circle, because they're your cheerleaders. They're the people in those times when you need them the most, when they're like, "Hey, you got this. You can do this. This is just a small setback. Keep going. Don't give up." Having those people in your life are so important. I mean, I hate to say this, but a lot of people don't believe in you until it works.
Mm,
And
Yep.
so having that, just even if it's just one person, in your corner that believes in you, just keep them close and stay positive. Always stay positive, because I've also been investing in myself too a lot. I have taken like a lot of life coaching sessions. I've taken ones that are mental and then also ones that are also physical for the body as well. But I'll never forget my very first life coaching lesson, and she taught me, she said, there's two ways of thinking. You can think from the front of your brain or from the back of your brain. And the back of your brain is considered like all the negativity, right? Like, I can't do this. All the negative emotions that you can think of live back here.
Yeah.
And all of the positive emotions, like when we were kids. Imagine when we were kids and we didn't care what people think, and we're just jumping in mud puddles and doing cartwheels in the grocery stores, or jumping up and, you don't care what the person next to you is thinking. You're just doing, you're just living, you're just being. And when you think positively, you bring in positive things that happen in your life. When you think negatively, you bring in negative things into your life. So
Yeah.
it's so simple. Honestly, anybody has the power to do just about anything. You just have to believe in yourself.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Huh.
and you just take one day at a time, like, you don't try to, like, conquer everything in one day. You just make small, little micro goals, and you just keep going one day at a time, and then next thing you know, you're, 2 years into this, and you're like, "Wow, like, what happened? How did
Yeah.
this happen?"
Well, I feel like that was such a like a wise, serene mic drop moment. Like the like this, like such a like wisdom. I hope everybody listening pays attention. Like continuing from that, probably every entrepreneur has a moment or maybe a few moments when they're really questioning everything and just like yeah, you want to like throw in the towel. So what have you learned from those moments, or if you think about like one particular moment, for example, like what did it teach you, and then on the other hand, like what helped you get through when things were really tough?
Yeah, we had a moment when we launched that we had launched at Stagecoach, and I don't know, I don't wanna get in trouble by, like, throwing anybody under the bus here, because that's definitely not what I wanna do. But like I was saying, we're a tiny, tiny goldfish in this shark pond, and Stagecoach has every year they have like an official boot sponsor. You have to pay a significant amount of money to be, an official boot sponsor at one of these events, which is where we were not at. And we had a booth there, and I was doing pre-sales at the time. What I had is I had a lot of our merch. I had like hoodies and t-shirts and hats and things like that. It was more of like a brand awareness for us, right? We're just launching this, we're coming up. And I did have some prototypes on display, and the girls could try them on and they could pre-order them, but that was pretty much the extent of it.
Mm.
And we had some influencers there. Our influencers were just killing it. I mean, they were like, we have some really amazing outsoles, and so they were like prancing around the park and music center, and just, showing off the soles of the feet, and our Instagram was, like, blowing up at that time, and we actually got in trouble by this company that was actually one of the billion-dollar boot companies that was the official boot sponsor that year, and they got together with Stagecoach, and they came into our booth, and they audited our entire POS system to make sure that we were not selling boots.
Well,
And I could have taken this as a really negative thing. And to me, I was like, wow, did we just threaten like $1 billion boot company here? Like, what's going on? But it became more than that. They not only did a full on POS audit in our system, but they ended up shutting down our Instagram for 6 months and made
oh
us
my
take down
God.
all of our content that we had done. Yeah, so
Wow.
everything that we paid, to basically be there and do, which was a lot of money with the influencers, with the housing, with the, making sure they had the inventory, to the booth that we had, to everything that we had created in our launch. And it was just like in a heartbeat. It was just like somebody could just like one of these companies could just come in and just be like, no, we're shutting you down. So that for me was like that was very devastating. And that was a big wake up call for me because that was like, okay, I realize I'm in a big league here. And that was definitely the moment where I'm like, yep, it just go to show me that if they wanted to take me down, they definitely could because I'm such a small female founder company. That's the moment that sticks with me the most because that was the most devastating and the most difficult for
But
sure.
from what I've heard in your story, Kristen, it almost motivated you to want to be the shark, right? That
Yeah,
can stand up and be their counterpart one day and, really disrupt this whole industry. Like, yes, the shark can come in right now and shut down the goldfish, but you're not going to be a goldfish forever. And that positive switch that I've heard throughout this conversation sounds like may have been motivated by situations like this, where you
yeah.
believed in yourself, you had the community, and as you experienced these things, you said, "No, success is out there."
Yeah, it definitely did that. It definitely did that. And I after honestly, after seeing how they reacted with this and everything, I definitely don't wanna be a shark.
Oh, okay.
Even if I get to that level one day, I would rather be like the dolphin.
I love
There we go. I like
it.
it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
I
yes.
don't I
totally.
don't wanna be the shark. I don't wanna be like that.
Mm,
That's not who I am. Like, I feel like I'm genuine. I feel like I'm humble. I feel like there's enough out there for everybody to be successful. Why do we need to get jealous? Why do we need to diminish somebody's success? Why do we need to do that to people? I don't feel like that's fair. I
mm,
feel like we should come together and we should celebrate people's success and be happy for people and try to lift each other up, you know?
mm,
Um, so yeah, so one of these days I want to be that person. I don't
mm,
want to be the person that comes in and just, because I have this much money and because have this powerful company that I'm going to just take you down. I
mm.
want to be the person that's going to be like, yeah, let's help you, let's raise you up. It
Oh,
is
I
hard.
love
Yeah.
well,
we need more of that disrupting the space than just the vegan approach, the sustainability approach. It needs to be a whole mindset approach. So I really
yeah,
appreciate that you're here and you're standing your ground and who you are and
yeah,
wanting to change the dialogue over what entrepreneurship looks like. And
yeah,
on that
same.
note, how can people find these booths? How can they learn more about you? How can they support your journey and get you to that dolphin status?
Right? Yes, I love it. I know I wanna be jumping and spinning in the ocean,
Yeah.
happy, right? Bringing everybody good luck. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so you can find us online. So we are e-commerce brand right now. We don't have any brick and mortars. So our website is www.desertbloom.com. We do ship all over the world. So
Mhm.
like last week we just shipped a pair of boots to Italy.
Wow.
And then also follow us on Instagram. We're on TikTok, Facebook, Pinterest, LinkedIn. All of our social media handles are at Desert Bloom Boots. Check us out, follow us, support a local brand. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely following. We're excited to
Yeah,
see where
same.
you go next.
Yeah.
Thank you
Hey,
so much for your time, Kristen. I really appreciate it. We could keep talking, honestly,
yeah.
forever with this genuine, empathetic approach. And this is what Johanna and I love to promote and love to talk about so other entrepreneurs understand that there is a space for them. When they're heart led, it doesn't have to be that shark eat shark world for
Exactly.
everyone. So
Exactly.
thank you for sharing your story, and we cannot wait to watch your journey.
Yeah,
Yay. Thank
totally.
you so much
Thank
for having
you.
me. Honestly,
Mm.
this was amazing. This is probably one of my most favorite podcasts I think I've done to
Oh,
so
Oh, yay.
thank you.
yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Well, till next time, everyone. Bye.
Bye.